What has been the most effective methods to get underrepresented people into the beers?
Ooh,
Directly inviting them to join us.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really hard to see any other methods that you can kind of establish as direct impacts, because so many things, I think the things that are most important are sadly long-term and things that you won't see a good amount of impact from for a good amount of time. But that's absolutely the first and foremost thing. Definitely.
Because when you think about beer, if you're not within the industry and you don't know how many females, non-binary, underrepresented people are there, you think of it as a sea of men.
Yeah.
And that can be really, really daunting.
Yeah, definitely.
But if you're actually invited to come for a social event or a festival or whatever it might be, it's way more accessible.
Yeah, definitely. Create a space where people feel like their presence is welcome and their voice is heard, because there's nothing worse than wanting to attend an event that is, about discussing beer and feeling like, oh, well, if I turn up, nobody's going to listen to me, because I'm sure a lot of women and a lot of kind of the marginalized groups within beer, individuals could probably draw on experiences where you've been told or insinuated that you don't know enough about the products.
Do you actually drink
I'm sorry,
that
do you drink that? Or many of us have worked in pubs where we have brought up maybe an issue with a beer and been told, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And that happens on a regular basis. So, you don't at that point want to go into a space where people are kind of in a social space talking about beer and sharing ideas and doing things in a positive way if you don't feel like you're going to be listened to. So if you create these spaces where you're saying, these groups, we want you here. We want your voice. We want to hear from you.
Then those groups are like a segue in.
Yeah.
So it's not like these sessions or these groups are the only place you can be.
God, no,
it's just an introduction in to say, look, you are welcome in this community, and you can be part of it.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's really important.
Yeah, I feel like that's what. Well, I hope that's what we achieved on Tuesday night with the beer social, which was we were allowing groups to come in and to talk about these situations, and then we were throwing the mic to them in some respects. We're saying, what do you want to talk about if we host these nights later in the year or maybe next month from there? And it gives their voice to be heard. And to be honest, that's really validating for me, and I'd probably say for everybody as well on the panel, and even for them as well. It's just kind of a nice feeling, I think, to get that ball rolling a little bit more. From something I feel like that we've all experienced in the past, where we've been the minority in a group of beer drinkers, whether that is that we're all women or that we identify as women. It's something I think we have combated more than once. And it's nice to give that space where that's not entirely the main focus. It's but it is the thing that brings us together.
It's a foot in the door in a place that will help you kind of develop your community and develop your confidence, because sometimes it can be very daunting, exactly like you said, Sam, like coming into a space where you don't know if you feel that welcome, or if you don't know that you feel like you're a minority. Being in a space where you can gain that confidence to talk about things and feel like you have a voice and you have a representation is really important in order to move out into the other spaces, because we need to occupy these spaces. It's the biggest part of being a minority in any industry, is to not shy away from it, to occupy those spaces and make your presence and your voice heard.
I was going to say, I felt like a clap just coming on there.
I think so. There's a lot of conversation as well around the fact that the beer social on Tuesday night was for women and non-binary people, Now, there's a lot of chat around, is it actually counterintuitive to make these spaces exclusive, excluding others? I think what we're trying to do is get to a point where we don't need to do that. But at the moment, we're not there, unfortunately. There are a lot of people that have had horrible experiences in pubs, in bars, in the beer industry, in all sorts of walks of life. And as we're trying to chip away at that, break it down, change
Break the mold,
things,
maybe.
yeah, we do need to be actively tackling it in such a way that is flipping it completely on its head. And this is another thing about representation. Like, representation is one of the most important things you can do to encourage people that don't look like the norm to join in a space where they might otherwise feel like they don't belong. And people feel uncomfortable with that as well, because they kind of say things like, but it's about the best person for the job, or it's, I don't want to, it feels forced, or like we want to live in a world where that isn't needed, obviously. But at the moment, we're not there. We have to be actively representing and being mindful of all of that. Otherwise, we're not going to change things quick enough.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, we have to just keep doing it and plugging away.
And I don't mean to overlabor the point, but if
Are you just after another round of applause?
obviously, easy as that. No, if you are looking at spaces where women and non-binary people and marginalized groups are getting together, excluding the majority, and trying to find their own community and creating spaces that are for them, and you don't understand why, if you are part of the majority, you're not being included, then that's a shame, because maybe you need to go to the people in your life who are part of these groups and talk to them and listen to them, because people have reasons why they search out a community within a minority group, in any industry and within the entire world. So if you don't understand that, rather than attacking it, as some people do, they feel excluded as the majority and don't understand why we all can't be in it together. But you have to understand, this is the aim eventually, is to be all in it together. But you need to have a level of understanding about why people need those groups and why people need those smaller communities within it, with each other. So if it's something that you struggle to comprehend, then go and talk to people within your own life about these subjects. It's an important conversation to have, and you really might gain some insight into other people's perspective. And I think that could be really beneficial.
Yeah. It's empathy, isn't it? And it's stepping into someone else's shoes, and you have to do that. Really, that's the best thing you can do to try and help other people feel welcome, is to just step into their shoes for a bit and see it from their perspective.
It's very similar to like the people that say, well, where's my straight pride? Why do you need a gay pride?
Yeah.
I don't have a straight pride.
Yes.
Well, you don't need one.
No.
That's
Every day is straight pride.
Yeah. Well, when is International Men's Day?
Every day.
Every day.
The other 364 days.
Yeah, I was going to say, there is one. There actually is one.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of thing. Like yeah.
It's a lack of it always comes from a lack of understanding, and that is not meant to sound patronizing. It is meant to give you an insight into how everybody can always do with better education themselves.
Yeah.
On so many subjects. So do some research, do some listening, and you might gain a bit of different perspective. Yeah.
I feel like what is quite nice, even no matter what category you may find yourself in, but a lot of things are being pulled out from under the rug, whether it is say, for example, like men's mental health, women's rights, trans rights, non-binary rights, anything like that. A lot of that is being pulled out for discussion, and to be honest, I know there's a lot of trials and tribulations within it, but overall, I do feel like it's going to be a positive outlook from it, because people are having discussions and going, okay, where have we gone wrong in the past? What can we do to provide a solution to make this right? And that's the overall thing that I'm quite optimistic about overall as a general community.
I genuinely think that it's one of the big things I always say is it's okay if you feel uncomfortable. Like, embrace it. No one enjoys feeling like that. It's horrible, and sometimes you feel embarrassed, and sometimes you just want to run away. But actually, it is how you ask the questions that matter, and it is how you learn to think differently, and that is how things will change. So if you feel uncomfortable sometimes, just roll with it.
Yes.
And ask some questions, and, you know, even if it feels silly, just ask.
Yes, absolutely. Deal with that uncomfortability. Find out why you feel that way. It's so much more interesting to learn about ourselves, I think.
Definitely.